But I love it when somebody says something can't be done. I love it because that is a challenge. And I always believe that there's a way. There's a will, there's a way.
If you want something done, you might want to tell Rebecca Campbell it's not possible. Achieving difficult tasks has been a lifelong theme when it comes to her work. But if you want Rebecca to take on your impossible project, you'll have to make a good case.
I've been very selective. I'm very specific on what I choose to do and when I choose to do it, and how I match my capabilities with the job, because then I know I'll maximize my strengths as well and give myself the best chance to be happy in what I'm doing.
This is Mark Wojcik, and I'm wondering, how's your so-called career? Welcome to So-Called, the podcast that explores the why and how of work. On this episode, you'll meet Rebecca Campbell, director for HP's 3D printing business, focusing on the services area. In a company as big as HP, a director can mean a lot of different things, so I asked Rebecca to describe the director role and also what her role means in a new area at HP like 3D printing.
It's a key role of being able to understand the vision and direction while being able to translate that into executing and really a meaningful way to get the teams excited about what's happening. And so director roles are really manager. It's a management layer, but it's also a really key leadership layer. And oftentimes we don't only manage individuals, we are leading programs or projects or organizations as well. So it's a really critical function within our company. But there's also these opportunities and times at which the organization needs to breed new businesses. And in large organizations, you can go from a very small business that's fighting its way. You can go to a startup that's well funded. You can do large businesses that have been around. So that life cycle of businesses is really fascinating to be able to experience that. So I went from a very mature business to a true startup inside of a large corporation, a well-funded startup within a corporation.
What is it you find enjoyable about your work, the work that you're doing right now?
And so in this current role, it's so open. There's you're a startup and you're just you can do literally anything and try anything. And I sit in this director space to have the ability to also do that, not just think about it, but to make it happen and work together and do that. One of my mantras is the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. So when I get to see people come together and make a change that they didn't think they could do collectively, I just there's really no greater satisfaction, at least for me in the work environment, in doing that.
In a work environment that is so wide open with possibilities and potentially dead ends, I asked Rebecca how she maintains her focus and drive and how she helps her team do the same thing.
There's a reason why I show up with energy and passion, because I'm very selective in what I choose to do, whether it's outside of work and nonprofits, volunteering, school, whatever that happens to be, or inside of work with the jobs that I select to go do. And there are definitely aspects of work that there's days where my energy is at a low and my passion has just got drained. But it doesn't, and I'm also a half glass full type of person. So that, I was just telling someone the other day, I'm like, I know you're asking for what's not going well, but honestly, I just always see the good side. I always see what's going well and happening. And I think that actually allows me, for those moments where you're dealing with an unsatisfied customer, or we're not hitting our numbers, or the project timeline didn't go well, or somebody wanted something, and when I hit those points, it's the learning side and the half glass full. But what did we do, and what do we keep striving forward? As long as there's forward progress, it's really hard to get me on something where I'm I can't go anymore. I've been very selective. I'm very specific on what I choose to do and when I choose to do it, and how I match my capabilities with the job, because then I know I'll maximize my strengths as well and give myself the best chance to be happy in what I'm doing.
What is the most satisfying thing that you find about work?
Well, I love it when somebody says something can't be done. I love it because that is a challenge. And I always believe that there's a way. There's a will, there's a way. And then and eventually maybe the passion runs out and the energy and you're like, okay, that didn't pan out. But then I learned a ton, right? So I mean, there's time and time again that we'll do something like we have to pivot. We have to pivot. And then I always say we pivoted, but we learned so much. And yes, you put so much energy in there, but we learned so much. And for me, I just love it when there's like this hard problem and you rally. It's not about managing people, it's about leading and how you lead people together so they can see that there is a way to make this happen, and then you do it. And there is just I mean, it's just like, well, you can step back and say, wow, like it's great when people say I did it or we did it, and it's just this is why I do, like, I just go on really hard topic areas and they never get me down because it's really like it's like a runner's high for me, to have those projects succeed in some way, shape, or form, and really to prove those wrong when you say I can't.
That's right. That is satisfying, though. Yeah, absolutely. How do you balance how much time you spend speaking, because people want to hear from leaders, versus listening?
Oh, that's such a good question. So you cannot over communicate to me in any way, shape, or form. So I guess listening is there's a conversation of speech, but there's also we're tons of email, Slack, a lot of other ways to exchange information, and so I constantly am absorbing and reading information, and that's part of my listening. Like there's just you can't overdo it with me because I mean I have this insatiable appetite for information. It's that learning aspect again. So I really enjoy. Not just do I need to be successful in my job. I really enjoy it. I ensure that I meet with my team members, every single one, at least once a week. At least once a week. And there's things about what we need to get done, but it's also just to say, how are things going, and really listening to that full aspect of individuals.
Discovering your skills and interests begins well before you enter the workforce, so I asked Rebecca about her background.
So I really like the STEM area. So I love science, I love math, I love technology and engineering. Now, there was no STEM when I was in high school or, well past my college career even. So it wasn't like, oh, you like those topics, that's great, here's STEM paths. It was just more of, I knew, I took every science class, every class I could. It was a very small school, so that was not hard to do. And we didn't have AP classes back then either.
Yeah. Okay.
So
and where was this?
It was in Montana, really small town in Montana.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. And I just happened to have a tremendous science teacher, and he taught actually from 7th grade to 12th grade, every single science course I ever took. And I took every single science course. And he happened to have a brother who lived in the Bay Area that was in computer science. So okay. He brought in a programming language, and this was in the late 90s. It was Pascal. Mm-hmm. And for me, I mean, I didn't know, I played Super Mario Brothers, but I wasn't like a gamer. Like, you didn't have gamers back then, really. Frogger on the green screen. But I just wanted to right back to the challenge. And I remember he said, oh, Becca will never be as good as her brothers in science. My brothers were very good in science. And so my mom told me, I'm like, oh my gosh, I cannot wait to show him. So anyway, I took this Pascal, this computer programming class, and Pascal was a language. Mm-hmm. I loved it. And I coupled that with what I wanted to go into college, and it definitely I wanted to be, STEM-based, I can say now. Mm-hmm. I loved biology, so I wanted to do biology, and I knew that computer science was a really well-paid industry, and I really liked it. So it was like, mm-hmm. Wow, if I can make good money out of college, and then see where else I could go and do something I like, that's like a really good combo.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Right. Well, so I went into computer science as my major at a liberal arts school. So there was no engineering programs. They were, computer science is what, biology was a big one as well at this liberal arts school, Pacific University outside of Portland. Okay. And yeah, so small class sizes. There was only, 2 females in the classes, and had a really great advisor, the computer science chair. Mm-hmm. And he said, you should not go in biology. And listen, I love biology. nope, do not do biology. You need to go into business. And I'm like, business? Well, I mean, but really, what's the hard, great, I get it, but I don't really get it. And he said, you will be so successful if you combine computer science with business. And I really, again, I had this high school teacher, I had this college professor, and the college professor would go out and he'd work in industry, and then he'd come back, and he'd work in industry, and he'd come back. So he knew. So I went into, I got my second degree in business. So I got a double major. And I did accounting and business because it was, it was a very, it was challenging, more challenging. And I wanted to get the most out of my money that I spent at college.
Yeah, right.
So I got accounting and computer science. And then, and I worked on college campus at the Career Development Center, which is also very intentional to get good access to good opportunities. And then I ended up getting an internship with HP and Corvallis for science. And I did that for a couple of years, but I also did other internships. So I knew what along the way I was exploring. So I did a tax accounting internship for 2 years at a local tax firm. And then I also did a really tiny startup that did for graphics calculators. They did software for graphics calculators. And so I helped to do sales and support. So I didn't do the tech side there. So anyway, I had a combo of computer science, sales engagement, and accounting.
What about at HP? Were there managers or mentors there at HP for you that you sought out or that presented themselves to you?
Yeah, I really can't overemphasize the importance of mentors and sponsors. And I'm always, I ask frequently individuals, do you have a mentor? Have you had a mentor? And when somebody says no, it actually, you'll hear me just go, oh, really? Like, it's actually one of those points that just really takes the wind out of my sail to start with. And then I say, how do we get you a mentor? I don't care where it's at. So I have had a mentor since day one at HP. And I have been so intentional myself, and as have my managers, in making sure I have at least one mentor. And for me, as a female in tech industry, I've always had a female mentor, in addition to male, because it's very important to have the full view. But for me, it was important also to have a female so I could see where leaders were at and making sure that they were leaders, 1-2 levels above me.
Yeah.
So it's been yes, I have, and either people have asked or I have asked. And I always tell people, the worst that somebody's going to say is no. Don't
Right.
ask. It's a guaranteed no. I mean, people love to help others. When I get asked to mentor, I'm just like, oh my gosh, I would love to hear and help in any way that I can based off of what I've been through or what others that I've heard of others. So yes, mentorship is really key. And maybe I could just touch on sponsorship really quick, because many people say, well, you said mentor and sponsor. I don't know what the difference is. A mentorship is basically where you're engaged in an ongoing activity to help you grow, and it's a very it can be flash mentorship, it can be group mentorship, one to many, one to one, but it's you're there, you're present, and you're having a dialogue about you, right, and helping you progress. And it's typically it's private and it's confidential typically. The sponsorship, you're actually not in the room. You're not part of the conversation that's happening. What you've done is you've asked somebody to represent you into where you want to go. If it's a role, if it's, a different opportunity, or just to highlight who you are, you've asked somebody to lend their credibility to you. And this is really important because you're not going to be in the conversation all the time when new opportunities come up. And so you need your sponsors to be there for you and advocating on your behalf. When you work, you receive something in return. It can be monetary, it can be self-satisfaction, it can be that you contributed back in a positive way to the greater good. And I just, I didn't like every job I did, but I definitely appreciated the importance of that work ethic and working hard.
Who has influenced your thoughts and attitudes about work, about just work in general, and maybe careers as well?
Yeah, so I'm from Montana, as I said, and in Colorado. So I spent some of my childhood there as well. And I always tell people, if it's like, oh, Montana is so beautiful, I'm like, oh my gosh, it's the harshest state to live in. It's gorgeous and amazing, but the winters are so hard. I mean, not harder, I'm sure, than Alaska or North Dakota, but they're very harsh. And you have to have this sustaining attitude. You have to have the respect. You have to have the passion to thrive. And I think so. So I go back to, I'm going to say it's my parents. My parents are extremely hardworking individuals, and I was just sharing this the other day with somebody that, we worked since, pretty much we could walk. I mean, we were hauling wood in from 0-degree weather in the backyard. We had wood stoves, and we were picking the vegetables and planting the gardens and going with my dad to work. He owned a construction company, and my mom worked at a fly fishing industry and company, and we did a type of stuff, catalogs, cleaned the fly shop. I mean, just the work ethic that they instilled was so great. And it wasn't just thou shalt work because I said so. It was, when you work, you receive something in return. It can be monetary, it can be self-satisfaction, it can be that you contributed back in a positive way to the greater good. And I just, I didn't like every job I did, but I definitely appreciated the importance of that work ethic and working hard. And so when I go to work and it gets hard, I'm just like, but hey, there's definitely a pot of gold at the other side over here. There's a silver lining in every cloud. They're true, it's really taking that mental approach, and they really instilled that in me from when I was very small, and it has carried that forward. And my dad really, he has a bakery cafe that he's had for over 25 years, which is pretty amazing in the food industry. And I was in 4th grade, and he put me in front of customers to take orders, and I was crying. I had tears rolling down my face. I was quite shy when I was younger. And he just said, no, because there's something special in you that will blossom here. I mean, he didn't say it like that. He's like, Becca, get in front of the counter and go take the order. Right. But he clearly saw something he wanted to foster. And I was just crying. And these poor customers, like this 4th grade girl, he taught me that customers are always first. And who live that and believe that, then, that's the most important thing. Keep the customers at the forefront. So.
To what extent has your career been planned versus discovered? And so I think you've done a lot of planning, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, and I know sometimes, I'll talk with folks and they're just like, listen, Becca, we aren't like you, which is great. Nobody's like anybody else. Like, we're not so, specific, and every step is planned out. And it is true. I mean, I was in 4th grade and I said, I want to be a CEO of a company. Like, that was my goal when I was in 4th grade. Now, whether I want to be a CEO now or not, that's not really here or there. It's really, what does that represent to me in my mind, and how do I get there? So I would say that I would say that it's maybe not like every like I had this 20-year plan, or even that I don't even really have a 5-year plan. What I know is I really follow my intuition and my gut. And the more experiences you have, the better your intuition is. And I always say to somebody, like, do you ever feel your gut burn when you know you should do something, but you're not? And some people, have different cues. That's my cue when I know something's right. And somehow my subconscious tells me that. And so I can be a little bit more less planned out and take a little risk, but I rely on my intuition in those cases. So, I didn't plan to be at HP. I definitely didn't plan to be in Boise for 2 years. I mean, we've been here 16 years. I never thought I would, the 3D, 3D wasn't even talked about really back. Well, it was there, but I never was exposed to it. But I would say that I have at least enough that I know when opportunities come up, I know if it's a good opportunity or not based off of what I want. And I think that's the important thing, is you grab opportunities that fit. Because you don't know where all the opportunities are, but when there is one that presents itself, you need to have, or at least I have had enough of an idea to know when it's good or not. But there is something really special about the culture that Dave and Bill established in the 1930s with their wives, which I always make sure I emphasize. It was this combination of these two couples who established really groundbreaking culture of what a company should look like. I mean, it was like they were a century ahead. And I think when I first got here, when I interviewed, I felt that. I felt that in Boise too. I interviewed in Vancouver, Washington, and Boise. And in Boise, there was just this really special sentiment and energy. There was a lot of young folks, a lot of young engineers, and there was like a lot of diversity, at least I was gender diversity. And that was really important to me. I don't think I knew it at the time because I was fresh out of college, but it just felt right. And coming obviously from a mountain state, coming into a mountain state, there's that Northwest feel where you feel comfortable. And I think, you're going along and you're doing things. And then when I knew that when I had ideas or I could challenge something or I could just really go, like I saw projects that definitely were not in my job scope. And I said, I want to go tackle that and just start doing it. And when the culture said, right on, and they praised me for it and I got recognized, I thought, oh man, like I can really do anything here. Like I literally can be anything I want to be at this company at any point in time. I mean, I think it probably only was a couple years in. And when I had that realization, then I thought, I'm going to be here as long as they let me do and learn and be and explore where there's new areas. And, like I mentioned, we're moving to Spain for HP and it's just those things that you would never guess when you come out of college. But that the culture allows you to do that was for me, it's just something really special. And anybody that knows me knows I have a deep love for the company.
Rebecca's learned along the way from the various jobs she's had, both good and bad.
I mentioned that tax accounting where I had that internship when I was in school. And that was really important for me because I didn't really enjoy it. Now, I was good at it. I had like intern of the year, which, whatever. I was good at it. It was numbers. I could, crunch through, and I got to use software really well, which helped at the time. But I didn't really like that job at all. I didn't, there was a lot of passion when I drive to work every day, and it just was really, but it was enlightening for me to say, yeah, like I absolutely don't want to sit in one of these offices doing people's tax returns and then, maybe going into auditing. Like that's just not me. That wouldn't use my strengths to the utmost potential. So that I'd say that was probably a really, really insightful lesson for me. And I was actually seeking, and I was seeking to understand too in that job. So I was very open to learning. And then I think, the best job that I ever had, and I have had many roles at HP. There was this time I was not a manager, and I guess I'll say it was the best team I was ever on. And I think it was actually, I can't say it was the best job. I've had some pretty phenomenal jobs, but this is the best team combo. And manager who just you'll notice this thread, like I'm very independent. Like I like to explore and do different things. We had this manager and he was so supportive of the group, and we got to go do. He's like, and I was in product marketing, go figure it out. But the team dynamics were like, we celebrated every birthday. We brought treats. I think I brought I love to bake. I brought baked goods in every week. We went for walks. We really understood each other personally. Like it was a tight knit team. And those friendships, they're still very strong today. But I really just felt totally autonomous. And I think it was a point that I actually made a really big difference. And it was kind of like that growth point, which you're doing something and you're seen as, yeah, you can do a certain level. And it was kind of that jump from knowing deeply your expertise to going broad and being able to cover more. And my mind went more strategic, visionary, business focused. And so that was a really key point in my career in that role. And I felt so comfortable and supported and giving me the confidence that I could have that exploration and growth spurt.
Yeah. And that goes right along with what you were saying about loving to learn. It sounds to me when you say that role, that role sort of really expanded all of that.
Yeah, with a supporting system, right? Which if you don't have a support system, then you're in a few, right? You're worried, you're nervous, you can't be your best. Yeah. And I could be my best. And I was like, the best in my job as a person I felt in that team.
Yeah, what a great feeling.
Yeah, it was a good feeling.
Now, if you weren't doing this job, or if you weren't, well, and I guess either this job or working at HP, what would you be doing if you hadn't gone this path?
Well, I mentioned that my dad owned a construction business. He owns a bakery cafe. He started a farm from scratch. My dad's very entrepreneurial, and my mom has a very entrepreneurial spirit as well. And I'm always like, I just want to have like my own little cafe, and I like to bake, and we like to cook. But that's the point. Isn't that it's a bakery or a restaurant or what it is. I think I really want to run my own business, or I would be, if I just don't, I think I knew what it was, I might be doing it honestly more. It's like, what's that piece that you want to do? But I really, like a small business, like where you could really connect with the customer and really make a difference, and that the value is in the service, not in the product. And I think that's really, for me, what I've learned too is I like products, and listen, HP builds amazing products, but I enjoy and care a lot more about service. The service, whatever that service experience is around that product and around whatever offer you have. So I could just doing something like that, I suppose. I wanted to be a zookeeper when I was younger. I love animals, so maybe, not a veterinarian, but a zookeeper, like running a zoo. Maybe I'd be running a zoo or something.
Well, there may be some similarities there, in your later career selection.
Right.
And now maybe you've touched on this already. I was just going to ask, what is the next big thing you want to do in your career? Now, you mentioned you're moving to Spain and you're in this 3D startup, a well-funded startup in HP. So, I mean, that's obviously a pretty big thing. So maybe that is the next big thing. But if you look, and maybe to look beyond that. But anyway, I'll just ask the question: what's the next big thing you're looking at?
Yeah. So I think when it comes, and I feel very blessed, and I've had a wonderful career. Now, I believe I'll have a wonderful career moving forward when it comes to work. But there's something that doesn't fulfill me fully. And I have a lot of passion around diversity and in multiple ways. And in particular, gender diversity is something that I have the most passion around. And so I think when we talk about the next big thing, it's really making a difference for women and girls, and the supportive men, society and community around advancing in multiple ways. Particularly right now, I just co-founded a nonprofit called Women Innovators, and that's focused in Boise, all around girls and women in STEM and innovation and technology, and bringing awareness and education to girls in the pipeline, and working with people like Girl Scouts and STEM Action Center, but as well as the businesses. And HP is very unique of how well we have resource groups and really kind of these small organizations that support diversity. And again, Dave & Bill's, that's part of the culture, but taking that and saying, what have we done there, and helping to bring that into Boise community in a more thriving way. So I would say just that, to me, that fulfills me. And that's the next big thing, is really having an impact. And so Women in 3D is another vector that I've been engaged with HP, and there's other Women in 3D. It's very small percentage wise. So what can I do to help accelerate and impact women in 3D to choose to go into 3D? And if I don't know what I want to do, consider some kind of path in technology or computers or 3D. I mean, there's so many things around 3D. It's not just engineering either. I mean, designing and arts and so many aspects. So I think that's definitely the next big thing that I'm on the path to really have some impact around, and do more for. I've had a great path. How do I share that back out?
If you'd like to know more about the nonprofit that Rebecca just mentioned, go to women-innovators.org. What advice would you give to your younger self? And what advice would you give to someone starting out today?
Oh my gosh. I'm just not a patient person. In fact, my mom in high school, I have it sitting on my desk right here. It says, "Give me patience, but please hurry." My mom gave it to me when I was a sophomore in high school. And I just don't, I just want things to happen so fast. And I just have this energy and this drive and this push. And I think, and it's always been there. So it's not like it just happened like since, many, many, many decades. And I think I would just tell myself that sometimes, and I need to tell myself this now too, by the way, that sometimes being patient will yield a better return than forcing something to happen. And I've seen this in my career where I can't get to some things I don't have the time, and it totally works itself out, like even better than I ever could have made it happen. And and I think this aspects, at least for me, around patience or respecting how things work together in a synergistic way and reflecting that versus just being self-focused is really important. Having that rounded view. Now, I think many people have that already. It's just my personality is just so it's overly intense sometimes. And how do I balance that back out?
So if you're asked about working in your field, what advice would you give somebody about that? Training, skills, talents?
Yeah. So, and I shared this. I have a computer science. So technically it's not an engineering degree, but then I went into software development, software engineering, firmware engineering. I really do think the way the world is going, and 3D it's like a prime example, that everything has technology at its core, every single business, and it's just getting more and more ingrained in what we do. I'm not saying you have to be a computer scientist or a mechanical engineer or double E at all. I'm just saying that if you can maybe balance out and you're thinking, well, maybe I should or I shouldn't, I would highly encourage you to get some kind of minor or degree or certificate in that realm of some kind of, I'm careful to use the word technology because people immediately go to hardware. It's not just about hardware; it's problem solving. How do you think about things? How do things interact together? So I really think when I come back to 3D, it's not just about the 3D printer. It's the software. It's how you think about modeling. I mentioned before, there's a lot of artists in the 3D world, a lot of designers. Clothing designers, housing designers. 3D printers are building houses. It's all around how you think about the world differently, because we've been in a construct of how things are built forever. And actually, we're totally taking that apart to say, we can be better at how we do things. We can be better for each other, for the world, for the environment, of how we actually build. Civil engineering, architecture. 3D printing is just at the core of everything. So I really think it's like, what are you passionate about with a little technology? Learn about 3D and you will be, the 3D is such the market, the opportunity is for anyone. You can design something, it's just, it's really, Mark, it's been fascinating for me to see how wide open this field is right now for so many different talents. You want to do finance? Great. You can do finance in 3D. Really, there's going to be this drastic need for talent that comes up that has an appreciation just for how to think differently.
One last piece of advice: expect a lot and give a lot.
So I coach my daughter, and I coach her since first grade, and in basketball and volleyball, and I always expect a lot. I expect a lot from these young ladies because they want to give a lot, and they can give a lot. And I always tell people, you have something special. Everybody has something special, and it's okay to challenge yourself and to ask of yourself more than you think you can give. And with that, it's kind of this confidence piece. But I was like, just trust me, you have something there that's really special. Find what makes you you, and just lean into that all the way. And don't let others crush that. They can second guess, they can tell you no, they can tell you that, it can't be done. But just trust in yourself. And I know that's kind of like, oh geez, like everybody says that, but I mean that really genuinely. Find what's unique about you, trust in yourself, and lean in all the way. And I just, and good things will happen, because that's when you will be your best. if somebody asks you to do something else that you're like, that doesn't feel right, you won't be your best and you won't be satisfied. And really only you can answer that. I mean, that's right. It's just really about learning about what that is for you and that journey of learning.
Whatever comes next for Rebecca Campbell, it's safe to say that she'll be leaning in all the way. Whether your career is your passion, a paycheck, or a pain, I hope today's episode has informed, inspired, and challenged your own relationship with work. Thanks for listening, and stay tuned for more episodes of So Called.